Hey guys, tonight we're going to the Eternal City. But we aren't going to the Rome of the movies, the one with the pristine white marble, the clean togas, and the British accents. We are going to the real Rome, a city of 1 million people crammed into a space designed for a fraction of that. A city that smells of fish sauce, burning oil and unwashed bodies. A city where the buildings are so tall they block out the sun, and the streets are so loud you can't hear yourself think. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations! You have just woken up in the year 100 AD, the height of the Roman Empire. You expect to wake up in a villa surrounded by grapes and servants. You don't. You wake up in an insula. This is the Roman version of a skyscraper apartment block. It is 6 stories tall, built of brick, wood and concrete that was poured a little too quickly. You are on the top floor. In the modern world, the penthouse is for the rich. In ancient Rome, the higher you go, the poorer you are. Why? Because there are no elevators. Every bucket of water, every basket of food, every stick of firewood has to be carried up 6 flights of narrow, rickety wooden stairs. And more importantly, if there is a fire, and there is always a fire, the people on the top floor are the last to know and the least likely to get out. You are hot. Rome in the summer is a furnace. The heat radiates off the terracotta roof tiles directly above your head. There is no insulation. The window is just a square hole in the wall with wooden shutters. If you open them to get a breeze, you let in the noise and the flies. If you close them, you bake. You sit up. The bed is a simple wooden frame with a mattress stuffed with wool or straw. It's lumpy. You share the room with your entire family. Privacy is a luxury for the people on the first floor, not you. You put your feet on the floor. It feels gritty. Dust is everywhere in Rome. It comes from the construction, the dry streets, and the smoke. Now you have a problem. You need to use the bathroom. In your mind, Rome is famous for its plumbing. Aqueducts. Running water. That is for the rich. The water pressure from the aqueducts rarely reaches the upper floors of an insula. You do not have a toilet. You have a pot. A simple clay jar in the corner of the room. You use it. And now you have to deal with it. You walk to the window, you look down, the street is 60 feet below. It is crowded. Merchants, soldiers, donkeys, slaves. The law says you cannot dump your pot out the window. The law is very specific about this, but the law is down there and you are up here. And you really don't want to carry that pot down 6 flights of stairs. So you wait for a break in the crowd, you lean out, you whisper a quick prayer to the goddess Cloacina. Yes, the goddess of the sewer. And you dump it. You aim for the drainage ditch in the centre of the street. Maybe you hit it. Maybe you hit a passing philosopher. This is why Romans learned to walk close to the buildings under the overhangs. The centre of the street was a splash zone. Now that you are awake, you notice the noise. Rome never sleeps. During the day, wagons are banned from the streets because the foot traffic is too dense. This means all deliveries happen at night. For the last 8 hours, you have been sleeping through the sound of iron wheels grinding against stone, drivers shouting at mules and barrels rolling over cobblestones. The poet Martial complained that there is no place in this city where a poor man can get any quiet. He was right. The city is a 24-hour construction zone mixed with a traffic jam. You get dressed. You pull on a tunic. It is made of linen or wool. It is simple, knee-length and belted at the waist. You do not put on a toga. Hollywood loves the toga. They put everyone in a toga. The baker, the soldier, the guy walking his dog. In reality, the toga is a nightmare. It is a semicircular piece of wool that is roughly 18 feet long. It is heavy. It is hot. It is impossible to put on by yourself. You need a slave to help you drape it. And once it is on, you can't run, you can't work, and you can barely use your left arm. The toga is the Roman equivalent of a tuxedo. You wear it for official business, religious ceremonies, or if you're trying to impress someone. For daily life, it's the tunic. You slip on your sandals, caligae if you're a soldier, or simple leather soles strapped to your feet. You head downstairs. The staircase is dark. The landlord didn't pay for oil lamps. You feel your way down the wood, smelling the cooking fires from the other apartments. Garlic, fish sauce, smoke. You reach the ground floor. This is where the wealthy live. The Domus apartments on the bottom level have wide doors. mosaic floors, and sometimes even running water piped in. You can hear the sound of a fountain inside. You feel a pang of jealousy. You step out onto the street. The sun hits you. So does the smell. Rome smells of burning wood, frying fat, stale wine, and humanity. But overriding it all is the smell of garum. Garum is the ketchup of the Roman world. It is fermented fish guts. They put it on everything: meat, vegetables, fruit, even desserts. There are factories outside the city where fish intestines are left in the sun to rot and liquefy with salt. The smell drifts over the city when the wind changes. To you, it smells like lunch. To a time traveller, it smells like a biological hazard. You start walking. You have to move fast. The streets are narrow, winding and chaotic. There are no sidewalks in the poorer districts. You are fighting for space with a cart carrying marble blocks for a new temple. The driver shouts at you, "Make way!" He isn't polite. Romans are aggressive. They walk with purpose. They gesture wildly. If you stand still, you get run over. You pass a shop. It is an open-fronted stall built into the base of your apartment building. A barber is shaving a man right on the street. He uses a bronze razor. No shaving cream, just water and oil. The customer is bleeding slightly. Next to him, a dentist is pulling a tooth. A crowd has gathered to watch. Entertainment is free in Rome if you enjoy other people's pain. You are hungry. You stop at a thermopolium. This is the Roman fast food joint. It has a stone counter with jars sunk into it, keeping the food warm or cold. You buy a cup of wine, watered down always, and a coarse loaf of bread. Maybe a sausage if you have the coins. You eat standing up. Sitting down to eat is for the rich. As you chew, you look at the wall. It is covered in graffiti. We think of Romans as writing deep philosophical treatises. Mostly they wrote on walls. I screwed the barmaid. Gaius was here. The landlord is a thief. Vote for Marcus, he brings good bread. It is the social media of the ancient world. It is petty, hilarious, and incredibly human. But suddenly the crowd parts. A silence falls over the street. 6 men are walking in perfect unison. They are carrying a litter, a bed on poles with curtains drawn. Inside is a senator, or maybe a wealthy merchant. He's being carried above the mud, above the smell, above you. He doesn't look out. He doesn't have to. He has clients walking ahead of him, pushing people out of the way. Make way for the noble Claudius. You step into a doorway to let them pass. You look at his slaves. They are better dressed than you. They look healthier than you. This is the reality of Rome. It is a city of layers, the people on the litter and the people in the mud. But you have places to go. You aren't just a spectator. You have a job. Or, if you're a typical Roman citizen, you have a patron. We're going to talk about the morning salute, the ritual of begging that kept the Roman economy running. Because in Rome, who you know isn't just a networking strategy. It is the difference between eating and starving. You finish your bread, wipe the crumbs from your tunic, and head toward the hill where the rich people live. It's time to go to work, or rather, it's time to go beg for your salary. You're walking up the Esquiline Hill. The air is slightly cooler here, a little less thick with the scent of fermented fish, but you aren't here for the view. You are here to beg. Well, the Romans don't call it begging, they call it the salutatio, the morning salute. But let's be honest about what is happening. You're standing outside the massive oak doors of a wealthy man's domus. You're not alone. There are 50 other men here, shivering in the morning mist, shuffling their feet, looking tired. These are the clients, and you are one of them. In ancient Rome, there is no social safety net. There is no unemployment insurance. There is just the patron. You have pledged your loyalty to a rich man. In exchange, he is supposed to help you. Maybe he helps with a lawsuit. Maybe he gets your son a job. But mostly he gives you the sportula. This is a small basket. Inside there might be a little food, bread, a piece of pork, or, if you're lucky, a few coins. Just enough to keep you from starving for another day. The doors open. A slave steps out. He is the nomenclator, the name caller. His only job is to remember who you are because the patron certainly doesn't. You line up. You step forward. The slave whispers your name to the patron, a fat man in a toga who looks bored out of his mind. "Hail, Gaius," you say, trying to sound enthusiastic. He nods. He doesn't look you in the eye. He gestures to the slave who hands you your basket. That's it. That is the interaction. You have just traded your dignity for a loaf of bread and 3 copper coins. You turn around and walk back down the hill, passing the next guy in line who's practicing his fake smile. This is the engine of Rome. It isn't democracy. It's a pyramid scheme of favours. The patron helps you so that when he runs for office, you will vote for him and beat up anyone who tries to vote for his opponent. You aren't a citizen. You're a political prop. You clutch your basket and head toward the Forum. This is the heart of the world, the umbilicus urbis, the navel of the city. If you believe the movies, the Forum is a pristine, white, silent place where men in togas stand around making speeches about liberty. Reality check. The Forum is a riot of colour, noise and chaos. The statues aren't white marble. They are painted. Garish reds, blues and golds. They look almost like wax figures. The temples are covered in graffiti. The columns are plastered with notices for runaway slaves and upcoming gladiator fights. And the noise? It is deafening. On the steps of the Basilica Julia, lawyers are screaming arguments. Roman law isn't about writing briefs. It is about performance art. The lawyers shout, wave their arms, and even hire professional weepers to cry in the front row to manipulate the jury. In the open spaces, bankers are clinking coins on tables, money lenders are shouting rates, and everywhere there are the sausages sellers. They carry portable ovens, selling hot pork links to the senators and the slaves alike. The smell of roasting meat mixes with the smell of incense from the temples. You walk carefully, you have to, because underneath the Forum, right beneath your sandals, flows the Cloaca Maxima, the Great Sewer. It is an engineering marvel, a massive underground river of waste that drains the city into the Tiber. But sometimes, when the river is high, the sewer backs up. The drains in the Forum gurgle. A stench rises up from the grates that is strong enough to make a legionary weep. It is a reminder that all this glory is built on top of a toilet. You leave the Forum and head toward the Subura. This is the working class district. It is dangerous, dirty, and alive. You pass a workshop. The smell hits you before you see it. It smells like a urinal that has been left in the sun for a week. This is the fullery, the laundromat of Rome. Romans love white togas, but how do you keep wool white in a city full of smoke and mud? You need bleach, and the Romans don't have Clorox. They have urine, ammonia. It is the best cleaning agent they have. You look inside the shop. There are large clay tubs filled with stale urine collecting from public pots all over the city. Inside the tubs, men are jumping up and down. They are the fullers. Their job is to stomp on the clothes, barefoot, all day long in vats of human waste. The ammonia breaks down the grease and dirt. They are singing. They have to sing, or they would probably scream. Their legs are stained yellow, their skin is raw, but they are essential. The senator who looked so majestic on the hill this morning, his toga is white because this guy is stomping in pee. You hurry past, holding your breath. You are hungry again. It's lunchtime. Prandium. You stop at a street vendor. You buy a cup of chickpeas. They are boiled, salty and cheap. You eat them with your fingers as you walk. But suddenly your stomach cramps. Maybe the water in the chickpeas wasn't boiled long enough. Maybe the fish sauce was a little too fermented. You need a toilet. Now. You look for a foricay, a public latrine. You find one. You pay a small coin to the attendant. You walk in, and you leave your modesty at the door. The Roman public toilet is a social club. There are no stalls. There are no dividers. There is just a long stone bench lining the walls with keyhole-shaped openings cut into it. You sit down next to a stranger. He is a soldier. Next to him is a merchant. Next to him is a slave. You're all sitting there, robes hiked up, doing your business together. The soldier turns to you. "Nice weather today," he says. You nod. "Yes, lovely." It is aggressively casual. You're chatting while you go. Beneath you, water rushes through a channel, carrying the waste away. It is actually quite advanced engineering, but then you finish. You look for the toilet paper. There is none. Instead, there is a bucket of vinegar water in front of you. Sticking out of the bucket is a stick with a sea sponge tied to the end. The xylospongium. This is the community sponge. You stare at it. The soldier next to you just used it. He rinsed it in the bucket, which is now cloudy, and put it back. Now it is your turn. You have a choice. Use the sponge that has wiped 1,000 Roman bottoms, or use your hand. You reach for the sponge. You try not to think about bacteria. You try not to think about diseases. You wipe. You rinse. You put it back for the next guy. This, right here, is the reality of the Roman Empire. They conquered the world. They built the Colosseum. They wrote the laws that govern us today. But they all shared a sponge on a stick. You leave the latrine, washing your hands in a fountain outside. You feel clean? No. But you feel relieved. You walk back into the street. The sun is at its peak now. The siesta hour. The city slows down. The heat is oppressive. The stone streets radiate warmth like an oven. Most shopkeepers pull down their shutters. People retreat into the shade. You find a spot under an archway. You sit down on the cool stone. You close your eyes for a moment, but you can't sleep. Because even in the quiet hour, Rome is watching you. We're going to talk about the eyes, not the eyes of the gods, the eyes of the superstitious, the evil eye, Malocchio. You see a woman walking past with a baby. The baby is wearing a strange necklace. It has a piece of coral, a bell and a phallus. Yes, a tiny carved penis. Why? Because Romans believed that envy was a physical force. If someone looked at your beautiful baby with jealousy, their eyes could shoot invisible beams that would make the baby sick. This is the evil eye. To stop it, you need a distraction. You need something weird or obscene or loud to catch the evil eye's attention so it doesn't hit the child. So they hung phalluses around children's necks. They hung them in doorways. They carved them into the streets. You see them everywhere. On wind chimes, tintinnabulum, on bakery signs. To a modern eye, it looks like a city obsessed with anatomy. To a Roman, it is spiritual protection, a magical lightning rod for bad vibes. You touch the charm around your own neck, a bulla, a leather pouch filled with protective amulets. You never take it off. You wouldn't dare. The sun begins to dip. The siesta ends. The city wakes up again. And now the mood changes. The workday is winding down. The pleasure day is beginning. You hear a roar in the distance, not the roar of the crowd in the forum. This is different. It is rhythmic. It is bloodthirsty. It is coming from the amphitheatre. You decide to go. You want to see the show. You want to see the gladiators. But the arena isn't what you think it is. It isn't just men fighting men. It is a place of execution. It is a place of mythology made real. You're going to see a play. But in this play, when the hero dies, the actor actually dies. We are going to walk through the gate of life and see what happens when entertainment becomes a religion of death. You're standing outside the Colosseum. To you, it is simply the Amphitheatrum Flavium. It is a mountain of travertine stone rising 4 stories into the Roman sky. It is the largest building you have ever seen, and it is vibrating. You can feel the noise before you hear it. 50,000 people screaming in unison creates a tremor that travels through the soles of your sandals. You reach into your tunic and pull out your ticket. It isn't paper, it is a shard of pottery and ostraca with a number scratched onto it. Entrance 42, row 15. But don't get excited. In Rome, seating is destiny. If you were a senator, you would be sitting right at the edge of the sand, on marble seats, close enough to smell the blood. If you were a wealthy merchant, you'd be just behind them. But you're a poor citizen. You're heading to the nosebleed section. The wooden bleachers at the very top. You have to climb steep, dark staircases to get there. It is a vertical hike. By the time you reach your seat, your legs are burning. You squeeze onto a wooden bench. It is packed. You're sitting shoulder to shoulder with the unwashed masses of Rome. The smell is intense. Garlic, sweat, and cheap wine. But then you look down. The arena floor is blindingly bright. The sand is white, but the air around you is cool. How? You look up. Stretching across the open roof of the arena is the velarium, a massive canvas awning. It protects the crowd from the sun. It is operated by hundreds of sailors from the Imperial Navy who are climbing the rigging like spiders. It is a masterpiece of engineering. And then a mist hits your face. You blink. It smells sweet. Saffron. The Emperor has installed misters, pipes that spray a fine mist of saffron-infused water over the crowd. It cools you down. It masks the smell of the blood. It is the ancient equivalent of air conditioning with a built-in air freshener. You look at the sand. It is noon. In the gladiator schedule, the morning is for animal hunts. The afternoon is for the main event. But noon is for executions. This is the lunch break. The rich people leave to eat. The poor people stay to watch the criminals die. But the Romans don't just hang people. That is boring. They want a story. You watch as stagehands drag scenery onto the sand, a fake mountain, a wooden cow. They bring out a prisoner. He is dressed like a mythological figure. Orpheus, maybe. He is given a lyre. He is told to play. Then they release the bears. It is fatal charades. The Romans love to reenact myths, but with a twist. The actor actually dies. You might see a man dressed as Icarus dropped from the top of the stadium to splatter on the sand. You might see a man tied to a pyre to play Hercules burning alive. The crowd eats their sausages and cheers. He didn't burn fast enough. Where is the lion? It is gruesome. But to the Roman mind, it is justice. These men are criminals. They forfeited their right to be human. Now they serve the state by becoming entertainment. But finally the trumpets sound. The mood changes. The air gets electric. The gladiators are coming. They enter in a parade. Gold armour glinting, helmets with towering crests. They are the rock stars of the ancient world. But they don't look like the bodybuilders in the movies. You notice something strange. They are chunky. Recent analysis of gladiator bones shows they ate a diet heavy in barley and beans. They were vegetarians. They intentionally built up a layer of visceral fat. Why? Because fat protects the nerves and blood vessels. If you get slashed across the stomach, you want a layer of padding so the sword doesn't hit your organs. It wasn't about having a six-pack. It was about survivability. The fight begins, a retiarius net fighter versus a secutor heavy armour. It isn't a chaotic brawl. It is a chess match. There is a referee. There are rules. The net fighter dances. He throws his net. He misses. The crowd groans. The heavy fighter charges. And then, a hit. Blood sprays onto the white sand. The net fighter falls. He raises one finger. This is the signal for surrender. I am defeated. The heavy fighter stops. He looks at the referee. The referee looks at the emperor, or the sponsor of the games. The emperor looks at you, the crowd. This is the moment of power. You, the poor citizen who lives in a leaky apartment and eats chickpeas for lunch, suddenly hold the power of life and death. You scream, "Mitte! Let him go!" Or Ugula, "Cut his throat!" Hollywood tells you it's a thumbs down for death. We actually don't know for sure. Some historians think thumbs up meant sword ups, kill him, and thumbs down meant sword down or mercy. Or maybe it was a thumb pressed against the fist. Regardless, the crowd roars for death. The fighter didn't fight well enough. He was boring. The emperor makes the gesture. The heavy fighter steps forward. The defeated man kneels. He doesn't beg. He offers his neck. It is a moment of supreme discipline. He accepts the blade. Thud. The body is dragged away by men dressed as Charon, the ferryman of the dead. They hit the body with a hammer to make sure he's dead. Then they drag him through the Porta Libitinensis, the gate of death. But the show isn't over, because outside the arena, a marketplace is opening. You leave your seat, you walk down the stairs, you go to a special stall near the gladiator barracks. You want a souvenir. You can buy a clay lamp with the face of your favourite fighter. You can buy a doll. But if you have enough money, you can buy something else. Sweat. The scrapings from the gladiator's skin, the oil, the dirt, the sweat collected after a fight. It is sold in small vials. Why? Because Roman women, noble women, believe it is an aphrodisiac. They rub it into their skin. They put it in their cosmetics. They want the essence of that masculine violence. And if you have epilepsy, you buy the blood. Warm gladiator blood was considered a cure for seizures. People would stand there, cup in hand, waiting for a fresh kill, so they could drink the vitality of a warrior. The gladiator is a paradox. He is a slave. He is infamia, socially dead, lower than a prostitute. He cannot vote. He cannot write a will, but he is worshipped. He sleeps with noble women. He is the ultimate celebrity. You walk away from the arena as the sun sets. The noise is fading behind you. The smell of death is replaced by the smell of wood smoke from the kitchens. It is dinner time. Cena, you're invited to a banquet. Wait, you? A poor citizen? Yes. It is the feast of Saturnalia. Or maybe your patron is feeling generous and wants to show off how many clients he has. You arrive at the domus. The dining room is the triclinium. It means 3 couches. Romans don't sit at tables. They lie down. 3 couches are arranged in a U shape around a central table. You recline on your left elbow, eating with your right hand. If you are the host, you are in the best spot. If you are a guest, your spot tells everyone your rank. And the food? Get ready. Because Roman cuisine is not pasta and pizza. It is an experiment in texture and shock value. We are going to talk about stuffed dormice, flamingo tongues, and the fish sauce that costs more than perfume, and we are going to find out why the guests are vomiting in the corner, and why that is considered a compliment. You are reclining on a couch. The cushions are embroidered with gold thread, but they scratch your legs. A slave is washing your feet. You try to look relaxed, but you are terrified of knocking something over. The first course arrives, gustaccio, the appetizer. You expect bread, maybe some cheese. Instead, a slave places a silver platter in front of you. On it sits a dormouse. Not a mouse you caught in the pantry, a gliss, an edible dormouse. It has been fattened up in a special jar called a glorarium until it is round and plump. It is stuffed with pine nuts, pork mince, and spices, then roasted in honey. It is looking at you. It still has its head. You pick it up by the tail as is custom and take a bite. It is sweet, crunchy, and tastes like greasy pork. You smile at the host. Delicious Gaius. Next comes the main course, prima mensa. This is where Roman cooking gets weird. Romans love Trojan dishes. Just like the Trojan horse, the food is hiding something inside. A roasted pig is brought out. The cook slices the belly open, and live thrushes, small birds, fly out. The guests cheer. The birds flap around the room, pooping on the mosaic floor until slaves catch them. Or maybe the pig is stuffed with sausages, which are stuffed with smaller sausages. It is meat inception. But the flavour? Everything tastes the same, because everything is covered in garum. We talked about the fish sauce before. But at a banquet they use the high-grade stuff, garum sociorum. It costs a fortune. It is umami. It is salty. It masks the fact that the meat might be slightly rancid because refrigeration hasn't been invented yet. They also love sweet and sour. They mix honey with vinegar. They mix pepper with fruit. They put cumin on everything. Roman food is intense. It punches you in the mouth. And the wine? You lift your cup. The wine is thick. It has the consistency of syrup. Romans boil their wine to preserve it. They mix it with seawater. Yes, really. Or lead acetate, sugar of lead, to sweeten it. You are drinking lead again, the Empire's favourite neurotoxin. You mix the wine with warm water. Drinking it straight is considered barbaric. Only alcoholics and Gauls drink unmixed wine. As the night goes on, the conversation gets louder. Politics, chariot races, who is sleeping with whom. But then you notice a guest turn pale. He stands up, stumbles to the corner of the room and vomits. A slave rushes over with a bucket and a mop. He cleans it up instantly. Does the guest leave in shame? No. He comes back to the couch. He eats more. This is the famous vomitorium myth. Note, a real vomitorium is actually the exit tunnel in a stadium, not a puking room. But the act of vomiting at dinner, it happened. It showed you were enjoying the host's generosity so much you physically couldn't contain it. Seneca, the philosopher, wrote, "They vomit so they may eat, and eat so they may vomit." He wasn't complimenting them. The feast ends with secunda mensa, dessert, fruits, nuts, and cakes soaked in honey. But also, snails. Snails fattened on milk until they're so big they can't fit back in their shells. You are full. You're drunk on lead wine. You are covered in sweat because the room is packed and the oil lamps are generating heat. You stumble out into the Roman night. But going home in the dark is dangerous. We mentioned the crime, but we didn't mention the vigils, the night watch. They are the police, but they are also the fire department. You see them walking down the street carrying buckets and axes. They stop you. Who are you? Where are you going? If you don't have a good answer, they arrest you, or beat you. They are overworked and underpaid, but their main job is fire. Look, someone shouts. You turn. An insula, an apartment block, is burning. The flames are shooting out of the third-floor window. The wood is dry. The fire is spreading fast. The vigiles arrive. But they don't spray water immediately. They negotiate. Sometimes, a wealthy man like Crassus, from the late Republic era, would show up with his private fire brigade. He would ask the owner of the burning building, "Will you sell me your building for cheap?" If the owner said yes, Crassus would put out the fire. If the owner said no, Crassus would let it burn. It was disaster capitalism. But tonight, The Vigiles are just doing their job. They form a bucket line. They use siphons, primitive pumps. But it's not enough. They start swinging axes. They aren't hitting the fire. They are hitting the building next door. They are creating a fire break. They are destroying a perfectly good home to stop the fire from spreading. The tenants of that building are screaming, throwing their furniture out the window to save it. It is chaos. The heat is intense. The smell of burning pine and melting lead pipes fills the air. You run. You don't want to be drafted into the bucket line. You make it back to your own insula. You climb the stairs. You collapse on your bed. You survive the day. But as you drift off to sleep, you hear a sound that makes your blood run cold. A cough. Not a normal cough. A dry, hacking cough. It is coming from your father's bed. In Rome, disease is the ultimate predator, and it is always hunting. We are going to talk about the Antonine Plague, the pandemic that killed 5 million people, and the doctors who tried to cure it with goat dung and magic words. Because if you think Roman engineering was advanced, wait until you see their medicine. You wake up to the sound of retching. Your father is sick. In the modern world, you would call an ambulance. You would go to a sterile room with white walls and beeping machines. In ancient Rome, sickness is a sentence, and the judge is often an idiot with a knife. You look at your father, his skin is hot. He is covered in a black rash. It isn't just a cold, it is the pestis, the plague. Rome is crowded, it is dirty, it is the perfect petri dish. The Antonine Plague, which historians think was smallpox, is ripping through the empire. It kills 5 million people. It kills aristocrats. It kills slaves. It even kills the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, probably. You need a doctor, but in Rome, anyone can be a doctor. There is no medical license. If you say you are a doctor, congratulations, you are a doctor. Most are Greek slaves or freedmen. Some are geniuses like Galen. Most are quacks selling flavoured water. You run down the stairs and find a medicus. He agrees to come for a price. He enters your apartment. He doesn't wash his hands. He smells of garlic and stale wine. He looks at your father. His humours are imbalanced, the doctor says confidently. This is the medical gospel of the age. The body contains 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. If you are sick, you have too much of one. The cure is always to get it out. The doctor pulls out a lancet, a small double-edged blade. He hasn't cleaned it since his last patient, who probably died of gangrene. He cuts your father's arm. The blood flows into a bowl. Too hot, doctor mutters. We must cool the blood. He prescribes a poultice. What is in it? Maybe crushed snails, maybe goat dung, maybe spider webs. Romans believed spider webs stopped bleeding. Weirdly, they actually do help clotting, but the goat dung, not so much. The doctor leaves. Your father gets worse. The rash turns into pustules, they turn black. His throat swells. He can't swallow. You realise the medicine isn't working, so you turn to the other option. Magic. You buy an amulet. A piece of parchment with abracadabra written in a triangle. You hang it around his neck. You pray to Apollo, the god of healing and plague. You pray to Salus, but the gods are silent. Your father dies. Now you have a new problem, a logistical one. What do you do with the body? You're on the 6th floor. It is 100 degrees. The body is decomposing fast. In Rome, you cannot bury the dead inside the city walls. It is a religious law, pomerium. The dead pollute the living. You have to get him out. If you were rich, you would have a funeral procession. Musicians playing flutes, professional mourners wailing and tearing their clothes, actors wearing wax masks of your ancestors, walking in the parade. It would be a spectacle. But you are poor. You wait until night. You wrap the body in a cheap shroud. You and your brother carry him down the stairs. You meet the Vespions, the undertakers of the poor. They work at night, hence the name from Vesper evening. They have a cart. It is piled with other bodies. They take him to the puticuli, the pits. These are mass graves outside the Escalin Gate. Open pits where the poor, the slaves and the animals are dumped together. The smell is horrific. Birds circle overhead. Dogs prowl the edges looking for scraps. You watch your father disappear into the dark earth. No headstone, no name. Just another casualty of the eternal city. You walk back to the city. You are grieving. But you are also terrified. Because you touched him. You breathed his air. Are you next? You need to get away. You need to leave this city of death. But where can a poor Roman go? You have no money. You have no land. There is only one way out. One job that provides food, clothing, and a ticket to see the world. The legions. You walk to the Campus Martius, the field of Mars. This is where the army trains. You see the centurion. He is terrifying. He carries a vine staff, a symbol of his rank and his favourite tool for beating recruits. Name, he barks. You tell him. Age? 19. Health? He looks at your teeth. He checks your eyes. He checks your legs. He's checking you like a horse. Good enough, he grunts. Sign here. You sign, or make your mark. You take the sacramentum, the sacred oath. You swear to obey the emperor and your officers. You swear to die rather than surrender. Congratulations, you're now a Miles, a soldier of Rome. You think you're going to be a hero? You think you're going to wear shiny armour and conquer barbarians? Here is the reality check. You're not a warrior yet. You're a construction worker who carries a sword. The Legion is an engineering corps. Your first piece of equipment isn't a sword. It is a shovel, and a pickaxe, and 2 stakes for the palisade fence. You are issued your kit. The Lorica segmentata, the famous plate armour. It is heavy. It pinches. It rusts if you look at it wrong. You spend hours polishing it with sand and oil. The scutum, the shield. It is made of plywood, layers of wood glued together, covered in leather and edged in bronze. It weighs 22 pounds. The pilum, the javelin, designed to bend when it hits an enemy shield so they can't throw it back. And the caligae, the boots, hobnailed sandals. They are durable, but in the winter your toes freeze. In the mud they slip. You're loaded down with 60 to 80 pounds of gear. They call you Marius's mules, because you carry everything. And then you march, not a casual walk. A Roman march, 20 miles in 5 hours, in full armour, in the sun. If you fall behind, the centurion hits you. If you complain, he hits you. If you drop your shield, he hits you. You march out of Rome. You leave the smell of the plague behind. You're heading north, to the frontier, to the limes, Germany, or maybe Britannia. You think it will be an adventure, but as you march, you see the veterans, the men coming back. They are missing eyes. They are missing arms. They look at you with pity. They know what is waiting for you in the dark forests of the north. They know that the barbarians aren't just wild men in furs. They are terrifyingly effective killers who know the terrain better than you do. And they know about the greatest enemy of the Legion. Not the sword, not the spear, the boredom. You aren't going to fight every day. You're going to dig. You're going to build roads. You're going to sit in a fort in the rain for 20 years. We're going to talk about life on the wall, Hadrian's Wall, the edge of the known world, where the wind never stops blowing and the locals really, really hate you. You're standing at the edge of the world, Hadrian's Wall. To the south, civilization. To the north, them, the Picts, the painted people, the barbarians who refuse to be conquered. You are stationed at a fort called Vindolanda. It is cold. It is always cold. The rain in Britain isn't like the rain in Rome. It is horizontal. It gets into your bones. You live in a barrack block with 8 other men. You sleep on wooden bunks. You eat the same food every day. Bacon, beans, bread, and bad wine. Your day is not spent fighting heroic battles. It is spent digging ditches. You are repairing the road. You're cleaning the latrines. The latrines at Vindolanda are communal, just like in Rome, but here the sponges are frozen. You are bored, incredibly bored. You write letters home. We found these letters. They are preserved in the mud. They are the Vindolanda tablets. Send me socks, one soldier writes, and underwear. Even the mighty Legion gets cold feet. Another invites a friend to a birthday party. On the 11th of September, for my birthday celebration, I give you a warm invitation. It is strikingly human. These aren't just killing machines. They are lonely men who miss their moms and want warm socks. But then, the alarm sounds. Berytus. The war cry. The Picts are attacking. They come out of the mist. They are naked, covered in blue woad paint. They scream like demons. They throw spears. You form a testudo, the tortoise formation. Shields up, shields locked. The spears bounce off the wood. Thud, thud, thud. You advance. You're a tank made of men. You thrust your gladius, the short stabbing sword, through the gaps in the shields. It is brutal, close-quarters butchery. You win. But your friend, the one who invited you to his birthday, is dead. A spear took him in the throat. You bury him behind the fort. You drink to his shade. And then you go back to digging the ditch. You serve for 25 years. If you survive, you get a plot of land and a pension. If you survive. But let's leave the frontier. Let's go back to the city. Because while the soldiers are fighting, The women are working. We haven't talked about the Roman women. Not the noble matrons, but the real women. The working women. You are a peppina owner, a barmaid, or maybe a weaver, or a hairdresser, ornatrix. Let's look at the hairdresser. You work for a rich noblewoman. She is demanding. She wants her hair dyed blonde, using saffron and pigeon dung, or black, using leeches fermented in vinegar. She wants curls. You use a calamistrum, a curling iron. You heat it in the fire. If it is too hot, you burn her hair off. If it is too cold, the curl falls out. If you make a mistake, she hits you with a mirror, or she sticks you with a hairpin. Roman matrons were notorious for abusing their hairdressers. The poet Ovid wrote about a woman tearing her slave's face with her nails because a curl was out of place. Or maybe you are a midwife. We talked about this in the medieval section, but in Rome, it is just as dangerous. Cyrenus of Ephesus wrote a textbook on gynecology. It is actually pretty good. He advises cleanliness and gentle massage, but most midwives rely on tradition. They use birth chairs with a hole in the seat so gravity can help. They use amulets. They pray to Juno Lucina, the goddess of childbirth. And if the baby is unwanted, this is the darkest part of Rome: exposure. A father has the legal right to reject a newborn. If the baby is weak or deformed, or simply a girl when he wanted a boy, he can order it to be exposed. The baby is taken to a specific place, often the vegetable market or a designated hill, and left there. It might die of cold, it might be eaten by dogs, or it might be picked up by a slave trader. They raise the baby as a slave. If it's a girl, she becomes a prostitute. If it's a boy, a gladiator or a labourer. It was legal, it was common, it was the Roman method of population control. You walk past the exposure site, you hear the crying, you don't stop, you can't afford another mouth to feed. This is the cruelty that underpins the glory. The marble statues are beautiful, but they are built on a foundation of discarded lives. But let's look at the other side of the coin, the slaves who became masters, the freedmen. You are a slave, but you are smart. You work hard. Your master likes you. He lets you keep a peculium, a small savings fund. Eventually you buy your freedom, or he frees you in his will. You're now a libertus, a freedman. You wear a special hat, the pileus, to show your status. You can vote, sort of. You can own a business. Some freedmen became incredibly rich. The Trimalchio character in Roman literature is a freedman who is richer than the senators. He throws lavish parties where he serves wine that is 100 years old. The Emperor Claudius relied on freedmen to run the empire. Pallas and Narcissus, former slaves, were the most powerful men in the world. They controlled the treasury and the correspondence. The senators hated them, but had to bow to them. It is the Roman dream. You can start as property and end up ruling the world, but for most, slavery is a dead end. You work in the mines, the silver mines of Spain. It is hell. You're underground for weeks. The air is toxic. The rock is hard. You die young. But the silver you dig becomes the denarius, the coin that fuels the empire. Let's talk about money. You have a denarius. It is a silver coin about the size of a dime. It is a day's wage for a labourer. What can you buy? A loaf of bread costs 2 asses, copper coins. A cup of wine cost 1 as. A visit to the baths cost a quadrans, 1 taus 4 of an as. But inflation is coming. Later emperors, like Nero and Septimius Severus, start debasing the currency. They put less silver in the coins. They mix in copper. The prices go up. The bread costs 4 asses, then 8, then 100. By the 3rd century, the economy collapses. Soldiers demand more pay. The emperors can't pay them. The soldiers kill the emperor and pick a new one who promises more money. It is the crisis of the 3rd century. Rome almost dies, but it survives, because of Diocletian. He fixes the prices. He says, "If you charge more than this for bread, I will kill you." It works. Sort of. It creates a black market, but it stops the bleeding. Rome is resilient. It takes a punch and keeps standing. But now, the sun is setting on the empire. Not metaphorically, literally. It is evening. You are tired. You have survived the street, the arena, the bath and the fire. You want to go to a party, not a stiff banquet, a bacchanal. This is a secret religious festival dedicated to Bacchus, Dionysus, the god of wine and madness. You go to a grove outside the city. It is dark. There are torches. People are drinking, dancing. The music is wild, drums and flutes. The goal is ecstasis, ecstasy, standing outside yourself, losing control. The Romans were terrified of this cult. The Senate banned it in 186 BC because they thought it was a conspiracy. They executed thousands of people, but the cult survived. People need an outlet. In a society of rigid rules, sometimes you just need to scream at the moon. You dance until you collapse. You feel the wine in your veins. You feel free. For a few hours, you aren't a poor citizen living in a leaky apartment. You're a follower of the god. But dawn comes. The hangover hits. You have to go back to work. You walk back to the city. The gates open. The carts roll in. You see a new building going up. It is massive. A bath complex, the Baths of Caracalla. It will hold 1,600 bathers. It has libraries, gardens, gyms. It is a palace for the people. You realise that Rome gives you bread and circuses to make you forget the squalor. And it works. You look at the marble. You look at the aqueduct bringing fresh water from the hills. You look at the road that stretches all the way to Syria. You feel proud. You are a Roman. Civis Romanus sum. Even if you are poor, even if you're hungry, you are part of the greatest machine the world has ever seen. But machines break. And on the horizon, beyond the Danube, beyond the Rhine, something is moving. The Goths, the Vandals, the Huns. They are looking at your marble city, and they are hungry too. We are going to talk about the fall, when the lights go out, when the aqueducts break, when the Forum becomes a cow pasture, but not yet. Right now, Rome is eternal. So go home, climb your 6 flights of stairs, ignore the smell of the chamber pot, lie down on your lumpy mattress, and dream of the arena. You're leaving the city, but you aren't going on vacation. You're going to a party. But the guests of honour are dead. In the modern world, cemeteries are quiet, sombre places. You whisper. You walk on the grass. In Rome, the cemetery is the hottest social club in town. You walk down the Via Appia, the Appian Way. It is the queen of roads. It is paved with massive basalt stones that fit together so perfectly you can't slide a knife between them. The road is lined with tombs, monuments, mausoleums. Some look like little temples. Some look like pyramids. The Romans didn't bury their dead in quiet corners. They buried them right next to the highway. They wanted you to look at them. They wanted to be remembered. The tombstones even talk to you. Stranger, stop and read my name. I was a baker. I made good bread. Here lies Claudia. She loved her husband and spun wool. But look closer at the tombs. They aren't just stone boxes. They have dining rooms, kitchens, gardens. You're going to a parentalia, a festival for the ancestors. The family gathers at the tomb. They open the door, they go inside with the body or the ashes, and they have a picnic. They pour wine into the urn. Some urns have feeding tubes that go straight down to the ashes so the dead can drink with you. They eat honey cakes. They gossip. Uncle Gaius would have hated this wine. Yes, but he's dead, so he drinks the cheap stuff. It is loud. It is cheerful. But it is also crowded in a different way. The tombs are prime real estate for the living who have nowhere else to go. Prostitutes, the bustuaria, graveyard girls, work here. They lean against the monuments of senators, waiting for clients. Thieves hide in the mausoleums. Sorcerers come here at night to steal bones for spells. The city of the dead is just as busy as the city of the living, but not all the dead are friendly. Romans are terrified of lemures. These aren't the cute monkeys from Madagascar. These are the restless, angry ghosts of people who died violently or weren't buried properly. They come back. They haunt your house. How do you get rid of them? You don't call a priest. You do it yourself. It is the festival of Lemuria. You wake up at midnight. You cannot wear shoes. You cannot have any knots in your clothing. Knots trap magic. You make the fig sign with your hand, thumb tucked between fingers, to ward off evil. You walk through your house barefoot. You have black beans in your mouth. You spit them out behind you without looking back. You chant, "With these beans I redeem me and mine." The ghosts follow you. They eat the beans. They leave you alone. It is a ritual of pure primal fear. A naked foot on a cold floor, spitting beans into the dark, hoping the shadow behind you is satisfied. But let's leave the ghosts and talk about the most terrifying job in Rome. We talked about the gladiator. We talked about the soldier. Now let's talk about the virgin. The Vestal Virgin. They are the most powerful women in Rome. There are only 6 of them. They live in a palace in the Forum. They guard the sacred fire of Vesta. If the fire goes out, Rome falls. That is the belief. If you are chosen, you are taken from your family at age 6. You serve for 30 years. You are rich. You have the best seats at the Colosseum. If a prisoner on death row sees you, he is instantly pardoned. You are holy. But the price? If the fire goes out on your watch, the high priest takes you into a dark room, strips you, and beats you with a rod. That's the easy punishment. The hard punishment is for breaking your vow of chastity. If a Vestal virgin is touched by a man, it is considered incestum, spiritual incest. It pollutes the city. The gods will be angry. The crops will fail. You cannot be executed. Your blood is sacred. It cannot be spilled. So, they bury you alive. This isn't a myth. It happened. Imagine you are a Vestal. You have been accused. Maybe you are innocent. Maybe it's political. It doesn't matter. They dress you in funeral clothes. They put you in a litter, strapped down so you can't scream. They carry you through the silent crowd to the evil field, Campus Scelleratus. There is a hole in the ground. A ladder leads down. Inside there is a small room. A bed. A lamp. A loaf of bread. A jug of water. Why the food? So they aren't technically killing you. They are just leaving you there. If Vesta wants to save you, she can. You climb down the ladder, they pull it up. They pile earth over the entrance. They smooth the ground so no one knows where the hole is. You are alone in the dark. You have a lamp. You watch the flame flicker. You eat your bread. You wait. The air runs out, or the water runs out. You die in the dark, buried under the city you served. This is the brutal logic of Rome. Order must be maintained at any cost. A woman's life is nothing compared to the safety of the state. But let's step away from the horror of the Vestals. Let's go deeper underground. Because Rome has a secret. Under the streets, beneath the basements of the houses, there are caves. Not natural caves. Man-made caves. Temples. But not to Jupiter or Mars. To Mithras. You're a soldier. You're looking for something more than just obey the emperor. You want a brotherhood? You want a secret. You join the cult of Mithras. You meet at night. You go into the Mithraeum. It is designed to look like a cave. It is dark, lit only by flickering torches. There are benches on the sides where the initiates sit. At the front there is a statue, a young man in a Persian cap slaying a bull. He is plunging a knife into the bull's neck. A dog laps the blood. A scorpion attacks the bull's testicles. It is weird. It is violent. It is mysterious. You go through the 7 grades of initiation. The raven, the bride, the soldier, the lion, the Persian, the sunrunner, the father. You undergo tests. You are blindfolded. You are bound. You have to jump over pits. Someone holds a sword to your throat, then pulls it away. It is a fraternity hazing mixed with a religion. Why do men join? Because it offers salvation. The old gods, Jupiter, Juno, they don't care about you. They just want sacrifices. But Mithras, he's a personal god. He promises an afterlife. And it is exclusive. No women allowed. It is a boys' club for the military elite. This is the competition for Christianity. For a while, it looked like Mithras might win. If things had gone differently, we might all be worshipping the bull slayer in caves instead of going to church. But Christianity had a better marketing strategy. It allowed women. It allowed the poor. It allowed everyone. And speaking of Christianity, let's go to the other underground, the catacombs. You are a Christian in the year 200 AD. You are illegal. If the authorities catch you, you are lion food. You cannot cremate your dead like the pagans do. You believe in the resurrection of the body. You need to bury them intact. But land is expensive, so you dig. The ground around Rome is made of tough, soft volcanic rock. It is easy to cut, but it hardens when exposed to air. You dig tunnels, miles of them, 5 stories deep. It is a labyrinth. You carve niches in the walls, locally. You wrap the body in linen and slide it in. You seal it with a tile or a slab of marble. It smells of damp earth and decay. It is dark. You navigate by oil lamp. You paint symbols on the walls. A fish, a shepherd carrying a sheep, a peacock. These are codes. The fish, ichthys, stands for Jesus Christ, Son of God, Saviour. If a pagan sees it, they just think you like fishing. If a Christian sees it, they know it is a safe space. You hold services down here, not because you are hiding, though sometimes you are, but because you want to be near the martyrs. You dine with the dead just like the pagans on the Appian Way, but with a different hope. The catacombs are a city beneath the city, a silent, dark mirror of the noisy streets above. But let's come up for air. Let's shake off the dust of the tomb. You're back in the sunlight. You want to buy something beautiful. You want to see the wealth of the empire. You go to Trajan's Market, the first shopping mall in history. It is a massive complex of brick and concrete. 5 levels, 150 shops. You can buy anything here. Silk from China, spices from India, amber from the Baltic, lions from Africa. The world is connected. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, means you can walk from Scotland to Syria on Roman roads, spend Roman coins, and speak a bit of Latin, and you will be understood. But this globalization has a price. The grain dole, cura annani. Rome has 1 million people. They cannot feed themselves. They rely on grain ships from Egypt and North Africa. The emperor gives free grain and later oil and wine to 200,000 citizens every month. It is the lifeline of the city. If the ships are late, riots. If the harvest fails in Egypt, famine in Rome. You stand at the port of Ostia, the harbour of Rome. You watch the ships unloading, mountains of wheat, amphorae of olive oil stacked like walls. You realise that Rome is a mouth, a giant hungry mouth that eats the world, and the teeth of that mouth are the legions. But what happens when the teeth get dull? You look at the coins in your hand. The silver is flaking off. It is mostly copper underneath. Inflation. The price of wheat has doubled. The price of a slave has tripled. The emperor is debasing the currency to pay the army. The economy is a bubble, and bubbles burst. You feel a tremor in the ground. Is it an earthquake? No. It is the sound of a wall collapsing. Not a brick wall, a political wall. The emperors are dying too fast. In the 3rd century there are 26 emperors in 50 years. Most are murdered. The system is eating itself. You walk home. You pass a statue of the emperor. Someone has thrown mud at it. The fear is gone. And when the fear goes, the empire follows. But tonight, you are still Roman. You are still the master of the world. You go to the bathhouse one last time. You scrape the dirt off your skin. You sit in the steam. You close your eyes and listen to the water dripping. Drip, drip, drip. It sounds like a clock ticking down. But you don't know that yet. You just know that tomorrow you have to wake up, climb the 6 flights of stairs and empty the chamber pot. Because even in the greatest empire in history, someone has to take out the trash. So you have survived the bath, the banquet, and the boredom. You have even managed to dodge the bucket of slop thrown from the window above. But now you face the most terrifying thing in Rome: politics. If you think modern politics is a circus, Roman politics is a knife fight in a burning tent. You are walking through the forum. A man in a brilliant white toga, whiter than yours because he rubbed it with chalk, Candidu's hence candidate, approaches you. He shakes your hand. He asks about your family. He knows your name. Why? Because he has a slave whispering in his ear. That is Lucius. He is a baker. Ask about his bread. This is the ambitus, the campaign trail. He is running for office, maybe quaestor, treasurer, maybe a deal, in charge of games and sewers, maybe consul, president of the Republic. He promises you everything. I will lower the price of grain. I will build a new bathhouse. I will put on the bloodiest gladiator show you have ever seen. But promises aren't enough. He hands you a coin. A bribe? No, a gift. Politics runs on bribery. It is illegal, but everyone does it. But the real action isn't in the handshake, it's in the streets. The candidate has a gang. His opponent has a gang. Clodius and Milo. 2 politicians in the 1st century BC. They didn't just debate. Their gangs fought pitched battles in the forum. They burned down the Senate House. They murdered each other on the Appian Way. Voting isn't a private act. You vote in public. You walk across a bridge, the Pont Suffragorum, and drop a token into a basket. Everyone sees how you vote. If you vote for the wrong guy, his gang might visit your bakery tonight with torches. So you vote for the guy with the biggest stick. And if you are ambitious, if you want to climb the ladder, you become a novus homo, a new man, the first in your family to enter the Senate. But the old families, the patricians, hate you. They call you names. They say your father was a fishmonger. Cicero was a new man. He was the greatest orator in Rome. But the aristocrats never let him forget he wasn't one of them. Politics is a blood sport. And the losers don't just lose an election. They lose their heads. Prescription. This is the ultimate political weapon. A list is posted in the forum. If your name is on it, you're an enemy of the state. Anyone can kill you. Anyone can take your property. Your children lose their citizenship. Sulla did it. The second triumvirate, Octavian, Antony, Lepidus, did it. Cicero's name was on the list. His head and hands were nailed to the rostrum, the speaker's platform, as a warning. This is what happens when you talk too much. You walk past the rostrum. You see the holes where the nails used to be. You shudder. You decide to stay out of politics. You just want to make bread. But bread needs grain, and grain comes from Egypt, and Egypt is far away. We're going to talk about the supply chain. Rome is a parasite. It produces nothing but laws and legions. It consumes everything. You're standing at the docks of Ostia. The smell is different here. Salt, tar, exotic spices. Ships are arriving from every corner of the known world. The grain ships from Alexandria are massive. The supertankers of the ancient world. They carry 200 tons of wheat. They sail against the wind. It takes a month to get here. If the wind fails, Rome starves. The emperor knows this. He's terrified of the wind. He builds a lighthouse. He builds a new harbour. He pays for the grain out of his own pocket if he has to, because a hungry mob is a dangerous mob, but it's not just grain, it's luxury. You see a crate of silphium. This is a plant from Cyrene, Libya. It is the most popular contraceptive in the ancient world. It is also a spice. The Romans loved it so much they ate it to extinction. It is gone. We don't even know what it tasted like. You see a crate of purple dye, Tyrian purple. It is made from crushed sea snails, murex. It takes 12,000 snails to make 1.4 grams of dye. That's enough to dye the trim of a single toga. It smells like rotting shellfish, but it costs more than gold. Why? Because purple is the colour of power. Only the emperor can wear a full purple toga. If you wear it, it is treason. The economy is built on these symbols, but who moves the crates? Who rows the ships? Who digs the mines? Slaves. We have to look at it. The engine of Rome. Rome is a slave society. 1 in 3 people in Italy is a slave. They are everywhere. They are the teachers, the doctors, the accountants, the farmers, the miners, the gladiators. You walk past the slave market. It is a podium. The slaves stand there, naked, with chalk on their feet, indicating they are newly arrived from abroad. A sign around their neck lists their skills and their defects. Greek, can read, prone to running away. You see a man buying a girl. He checks her teeth. He feels her muscles. It is livestock trading. But these are people. People who were once free. People who were captured in war or kidnapped by pirates. Sometimes they rebel. Spartacus. The name still terrifies the Romans centuries later. A gladiator who broke out, who built an army of slaves, who defeated the legions. For 2 years, Rome trembled. They realized they were sleeping on a volcano. When they finally defeated him, they crucified 6,000 slaves along the Appian Way. A line of dying men stretching for 120 miles. A message, do not wake the volcano. You look at the slave carrying your groceries. He is quiet. He is obedient. But you wonder, what is he thinking? You treat him well. Not because you are kind, but because you are afraid. Seneca said, as many enemies as there are slaves. You go home. You bar the door. You light a lamp. Olive oil. The light of the Mediterranean. You pick up a scroll. You can read. Literacy in Rome is surprisingly high. Even the graffiti is written in cursive. You read a poem by Catullus. It is rude. It is funny. It is about a girl who broke his heart. I hate and I love. Why I do this, perhaps you ask? I know not, but I feel it happening and I'm tortured. It sounds modern. It sounds like a pop song. You realise that these people, with their slaves and their gladiators and their fish sauce, are exactly like you. They love. They hate. They fear death. They want to be remembered. You look at your own walls. The paint is peeling. You decide to leave a mark. You take a knife. You scratch your name into the plaster. Lucius was here. It is a tiny act of defiance against time. And 2,000 years later, an archaeologist will find it. And for a second, you will live again. But the night is deep. The oil is running low. You blow out the lamp. The darkness returns. But tomorrow is a special day. Tomorrow the emperor is holding a triumph, a parade of victory, gold, prisoners, exotic animals. The city will be insane, the noise will be deafening, but you will be there because you are a Roman and you love a show. We're going to talk about the triumph, the general in the chariot, the slave whispering in his ear, "Remember, you are mortal," and the strange, bloody ritual at the end of the parade that nobody puts in the movies. You are standing on the Via Sacra, the sacred way. The crowd is pressing against you, a wall of sweating, shouting humanity. You can't move, you can't breathe, but you don't care, because today you are going to see a god. The trumpets blast, a sound so loud it rattles the teeth in your head. The procession begins. This is the triumph, the highest honour Rome can bestow. It is a victory lap, a religious ritual and a massive party rolled into one. First come the wagons, piled high with gold, silver and statues looted from the conquered land. Maybe it's Dacia, maybe it's Judea, maybe it's Gaul. It doesn't matter. It belongs to Rome now. Then come the paintings, giant billboards carried on poles, depicting the battles. Here is the general crossing the river. Here is the general burning the barbarian village. It is a moving newsreel for a population that can't read. Then the exotic animals, lions, elephants, giraffes, creatures you have never seen before. The crowd gasps. They realise the world is bigger than they thought, and Rome owns all of it. Then the prisoners, the enemy king, Vercingetorix, or Jugurtha, or Zenobia, bound in golden chains that are so heavy she can barely walk. They walk in silence. They know they are walking to their deaths. The crowd boos, they throw rotten fruit. It is a humiliation ritual. And finally, the general. He rides in a round chariot drawn by 4 white horses, but look at his face. It is red. He has painted his face with vermilion paste. Why? Because he is impersonating Jupiter, the king of the gods. For this one day he is not a man. He is a deity. He wears a purple toga embroidered with gold stars. He holds an ivory scepter. He is the master of the universe. But look closely at the chariot. Right next to him stands a slave, a public slave. He is holding a golden crown over the general's head, and he is whispering. We all know the line, "Remember, you are mortal, memento mori." But he also whispers, "Look behind you." Why? Because behind the general, underneath the chariot, hangs a phallus, a charm, to ward off the evil eye. Because when you are a god, the universe gets jealous. The slave is there to make sure the general's head doesn't explode from hubris before he reaches the temple. The procession climbs the Capitoline Hill. The general sacrifices a white bull to Jupiter. The smoke rises, the crowd cheers. But while the general is praying, something else is happening. The enemy king, the man who walked in chains, is taken aside. He's led away from the sunlight, down a set of stairs to the Tullianum, the Mamertine prison. It is a hole in the ground, a dungeon. It smells of old death. He is lowered into the darkness, and there, while the crowd above is cheering for glory, the executioner strangles him, or starves him. Jugurtha, the king of Numidia, was thrown into the hole and left to starve. He joked as he fell. "By Hercules, your bath is cold. This is the Roman way. Glory on the hill, murder in the basement, the triumph ends. The general gives a banquet. He gives money to the soldiers. He gives wine to the people. You go home drunk on victory. You feel invincible. But when you get home, the feeling fades. You enter your apartment. It is dark. It is small. You're not a god. You're a microscopic cog in a giant machine. So you turn to your own gods, the little ones, the lares and penates. You have a shrine in the corner, a lararium. It looks like a little dollhouse. Inside are small bronze or clay statues. The lares are the spirits of your ancestors. They watch the door. They protect the family. The penates are the spirits of the pantry. They protect the food. You light a small lamp. You offer a pinch of salt, a bit of spelt cake. Protect this house. Keep the grain from moulding. Keep the fire from spreading. This is the real religion of Rome, not the big temples. The contract. Do it des. I give so that you may give. If you forget the sacrifice, you trip on the threshold, you lose your purse, your child gets sick. You live in a world where every accident is a punishment, but you have other worries. Your daughter is 14. It is time. Marriage. You aren't looking for love. You're looking for a deal. You find a man. Maybe he is a shopkeeper. Maybe he has a steady trade. You negotiate the dowry, money, clothes, maybe a slave. The wedding day comes. Your daughter dresses in a white tunic tied with the knot of Hercules. Only the husband is allowed to untie it. A challenge for the wedding night. She wears a veil, the flammium. It is the colour of flame. Yellow-orange. She looks like a candle. They sacrifice a pig. They check the entrails. The liver looks good. The marriage will last. They sign the contract. Tabulae nuptiales. And then, the abduction. The groom pretends to steal her from her mother's arms. It is a reenactment of the rape of the Sabine women. A violent myth turned into a wedding ritual. He carries her over the threshold of his house. Why? Because if she trips, it is the worst omen possible. She turns to him and says the formula, Ubi tu Gaius ego Gaia. Where you are Gaius, I am Gaia. Where you lead, I follow. It sounds submissive, but don't be fooled. The Roman matrona, the wife, is a force of nature. Legally, she owns nothing. Her father owns her, then her husband owns her. She cannot vote. She cannot hold office. But in the house, she's the boss. She holds the keys. She manages the slaves. She controls the budget. And if she is unhappy, divorce. Roman divorce is surprisingly modern. You don't need a judge. You don't need a reason. You just say, take your things and go. Or you send a letter. I divorce you. It is a transaction. If you divorce, you have to give back the dowry. This keeps men from divorcing their wives for no reason. It's too expensive. But what if you can't divorce? What if you are trapped? What if the husband is a tyrant? Then you turn to the dark arts. Poison. Rome is terrified of poison. It is the woman's weapon. You can't use a sword. You can't challenge him to a duel. But you can pick mushrooms. We have to talk about Locusta. She's the most famous serial killer in Roman history. And she was a government employee. She was a poisoner. The Empress Agrippina hired her to kill the Emperor Claudius. How? A dish of poisoned mushrooms. His favourite food. He ate them. He choked. But he didn't die immediately. His doctor tried to help him by tickling his throat with a feather to make him vomit. But the feather was dipped in poison too. Locusta was thorough. When Nero became emperor, he hired her again. He wanted to kill his stepbrother, Britannicus. Locusta brewed a potion. It worked instantly. Britannicus fell dead at the dinner table. Nero was so happy he gave her a villa and students. She started a poisoning school. This is the shadow of Rome. Behind every great man there is a woman with a vial of aconite. But poison isn't the only danger in the home. Lead again. We talked about the wine, but it is in the makeup. It is in the water pipes. Plumbum. Hence, plumbing. The Romans knew lead was bad. Vitruvius, the architect, wrote that lead workers were pale and sickly. But they loved it. It was cheap. It was malleable. It made the water taste sweet. So they kept using it. They drank it. They bathed in it. Some historians think this is why the empire fell. Lead poisoning theory. The aristocracy went mad. They became infertile. They got gout. It is a slow suicide, a civilization drinking itself to death from golden cups lined with grey metal. But you aren't a noble. You drink from a clay cup. You're safe from lead, but you aren't safe from the fire. It is night again. You're sleeping. You hear a scream. Fire! You smell smoke. You jump up. You grab your children. You run to the stairs. But the stairs are burning. The insula is a chimney. You run to the window. It is 6 stories down. You have a choice. Burn or jump. This is the reality of Rome. It is a city that burns every night. You climb out onto the ledge. You see the vigils below with a blanket. Or maybe just a pile of straw. You jump. You survive. But your home is gone. Your tools are gone. Your savings are gone. You are destitute. You are now a proletari, the lowest class. The people who own nothing but their children. Proles. What do? You sell yourself. We talked about slavery as a trap. But sometimes it is a lifeboat. Desperate citizens would sell themselves into slavery just to get food. Just to have a roof. You sign a contract. You become a gladiator, or a tutor, or a farmhand. You trade your freedom for bread. It is a grim choice. But in Rome, freedom is a luxury. Survival is a necessity. You walk to the slave market. You stand on the block. You wait for a master. And you realise that the empire wasn't built on marble. It was built on the backs of people who had no choice. But even as a slave, you have hope. Saturnalia, the best week of the year. December, the world turns upside down. Masters serve slaves. Gambling is legal. Everyone wears the pileus, the freedom hat. You get a break. You get gifts. You get to be human again. For 1 week, Rome admits that the hierarchy is a lie, that we're all just men and women trying to stay warm. You drink the wine, you eat the cake, you laugh. And for a moment you forget the fire, you forget the lead, you forget the emperor. You're just alive, and in Rome. That is the only victory that counts. But the party ends. The sun rises on a new era. A strange new cult is growing in the east. They don't worship Jupiter. They don't worship the emperor. They worship a carpenter who died on a cross. They meet in the catacombs. They share bread. They call each other brother and sister. The Romans call them atheists because they deny the Roman gods. They throw them to the lions. They burn them as torches in Nero's garden. But the more you kill them, the more they grow. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. You see a symbol scratched on a wall, a fish. You don't know it yet, but that fish is going to eat the eagle. The empire is dying. A new world is being born in the dark. We're going to talk about the fall, when the Visigoths come to the gate, when the aqueducts run dry, when the lights go out for 1,000 years. But not yet. Right now, the music is still playing. So pour another cup of wine, and let's watch the sunset over the Palatine Hill. You're standing in the largest stadium ever built in human history. The Colosseum, that is for tourists. It holds 50,000 people. Cute. You're at the Circus Maximus. It holds 250,000 screaming Romans. That is a quarter of the city's population in one place. The noise is not a sound. It is a physical force. It hits you in the chest like a hammer. You're here for the chariot races. If the gladiators are MMA fighters, the charioteers are Formula One drivers, but with no seatbelts, no brakes, and horses that want to kill them. You look down at the track. It is a long oval with a barrier in the middle called the spina. On the spina there are statues of gods, obelisks stolen from Egypt, and the lap counters, 7 bronze dolphins that tip over one by one. The race begins. Mappa. The emperor drops a white cloth. 12 chariots explode from the gates. But you aren't watching the horses. You're watching the colours. Rome is divided into factions. The reds, the whites, the blues, and the greens. This isn't just about sports. This is a gang war. If you are a green, you sit with the greens. You wear green. You curse the blues. Politics, religion, social status. It all disappears. There is only the faction. People die in the stands. Fights break out over a foul. Emperors have executed people for cheering for the wrong team. It is hooliganism on a massive scale. Down on the track, the violence is calculated. The charioteer, the auriga, is a slave. But he is the richest man in Rome. A famous driver can buy his freedom 10 times over. He earns more than a senator. He is wearing a leather helmet and a tunic in his team's colour. He is holding the reins. But look closely. He isn't holding them in his hands. He has wrapped the reins around his waist. Why? To use his body weight to steer the horses. He has to lean into the turns. It gives him power, but it also makes him a prisoner. If the chariot crashes, a naufragium, shipwreck, he cannot let go. The horses will drag him. He will be torn apart. That is why he carries a small curved knife in his belt. If he crashes, he has a split second to cut the reins before he is turned into meat. You watch as a green chariot clips a blue one. The wheel shatters. The driver is thrown. He fumbles for his knife. He is too slow. The horses drag him under the wheels of the next chariot. The crowd goes wild. They didn't come for the race. They came for the wreck. This is the adrenaline of Rome. Speed, dust, death. But eventually the races end. You walk out of the circus, your ears ringing. You need to relax. You head to the baths. We touched on the baths before, but we need to talk about the invisible technology that makes them work. The hippocaust. You walk into the caldarium, the hot room. The floor is warm under your feet. The walls radiate heat. How? There are no heaters. There is no fire in the room. The fire is under you. The floor is suspended on stacks of bricks called pili. Underneath the floor, slaves are shoveling wood into a furnace. The hot air and smoke circulate under the floor and up through hollow tiles in the walls. It is central heating. It is genius. But think about the cost. For you to be warm, a slave has to stand in a tunnel full of smoke, shoveling coal, suffocating in the dark. The luxury of Rome is always powered by the misery of the invisible. You enjoy the heat. You scrape off the dirt. You feel civilized. But outside the baths, the city is getting dangerous. We are going to talk about the emperor's bodyguards, the Praetorian Guard. They are the elite. They wear purple-trimmed togas. They live in a fortress inside the city. Their job is to protect the emperor. In reality, their job is to decide who the emperor is. You are walking past the palace. You see the Praetorians standing guard. They look bored, but they are the most dangerous men in the world. If they like the emperor, he lives. If he doesn't pay them enough, he dies. Let's look at the year 193 AD, the year of the 5 emperors. The Praetorians murder the Emperor Pertinax. Why? He tried to discipline them. He told them to stop partying, so they killed him. And then they did something that defines the corruption of the late empire. They auctioned the empire. They stood on the walls of their camp and shouted, "Who wants to be emperor? Highest bidder takes the throne." 2 senators showed up, Sulpicianus and Didius Julianus. They started bidding. "I'll give every soldier 10,000 sestertii. I'll give 15,000. Didius Julianus won. He promised 25,000 sestertii to every single guardsman. That is 5 years' wages. He bought the world. He walked into the palace. The Senate bowed to him because they were terrified of the guards. But he couldn't pay. He sat in the palace, alone, realizing he had bought a death sentence. 66 days later, a general named Septimius Severus marched on Rome. The Praetorians, cowards at heart, betrayed Julianus to save themselves. Julianus was beheaded in the bathroom, crying. This is the rot at the heart of Rome. The army is no longer loyal to the state. It is loyal to the gold. You, the average citizen, watch this happen. You see emperors rise and fall like tides. You stop caring. Who is Caesar today? Does he have cheap grain? Fine. Hail, Caesar. Patriotism is dying. It is being replaced by survival. But there is one emperor who tries to fix it. But he fixes it by making it a prison. Diocletian. He looks at the chaos. He says, the empire is too big for one man. He splits it. East and west. He creates the tetrarchy. 4 emperors. And he locks down society. Are you a baker? Your son must be a baker. Are you a soldier? Your son must be a soldier. He freezes the economy. He freezes your life. You're no longer a citizen. You're a unit of production. It works. It saves the empire for another 100 years. But it turns Rome into a bureaucracy of iron. You feel the weight of it. The tax collector comes to your door. He counts your chickens. He counts your olive trees. He counts your children. If you can't pay, he takes your land. You see your neighbours fleeing the city. They are going to the countryside. They are becoming colony, serfs. They are giving up their freedom to a rich landlord in exchange for protection from the tax collector. The Middle Ages are beginning. The feudal system is being born right here, in the ashes of the Roman economy. But you stay in the city. You are stubborn. You are Roman. But the city is changing. The temples are closing. The Emperor Constantine has converted. You see the Christians coming out of the catacombs. They aren't hiding anymore. They are building basilicas. They take the old law courts and turn them into churches. They take the statues of Jupiter and rename them St. Peter. They take the statues of Isis holding baby Horus and rename them Mary and Jesus. It is a hostile takeover of the culture. You watch the Vestal Virgins being evicted from their palace. The sacred fire is extinguished. You feel a chill. The fire that burned for 1,000 years is out. Does that mean Rome is dead? No, not yet, because the walls are still strong. The Aurelian walls, massive brick fortifications that surround the city. You stand on the wall, you look north, you see smoke. The barbarians are coming. Not the painted Picts. These are different. These are the Goths. They aren't savages. They are organised. They have Roman weapons. They have Roman training. Many of them served in the Roman army as mercenaries. Alaric the Goth. He wants land. He wants gold. He wants a place at the table. Rome says no. So Alaric decides to take it. The year is 408 AD. The Goths surround Rome. It is a siege. But this time, there is no legion coming to save you. The legions are gone. They are fighting civil wars in Ravenna or Constantinople. Rome is alone. The food runs out. You're back to eating rats. You're back to the hunger. The Goths don't attack. They just wait. They control the Tiber. No grain ships. The city of marble becomes a city of ghosts. People start whispering about the old gods. We abandoned Jupiter. That is why this is happening. The Pope says, no, this is a test. But you don't care about theology. You care about bread. Finally, the Senate breaks. They send envoys to Alaric. They ask, "What will you leave us?" Alaric laughs. "Your lives." He demands all the gold, all the silver, all the silk, and 3,000 pounds of pepper. Yes, pepper. The spice is still worth more than life. Rome pays. They melt down the statues of the old gods to pay the barbarian. It is a humiliation. Alaric takes the gold and leaves. You breathe, you survived. But he comes back. 2 years later, 410 AD. This time he doesn't want gold. He wants the city. It is night. You're sleeping in your bed. You hear a sound, not a trumpet, not a shout, a creak. The Salarian gate is opening. Who opened it? A traitor, a slave, a starving citizen who just wanted it to end. It doesn't matter. The Goths are inside. For the first time in 800 years, an enemy army is walking the streets of Rome. The sack of Rome has begun. We are going to talk about the end of the world, how the lights went out, how the libraries burned, and how you, the little person in the apartment, watched the Empire fall out your window. You are hiding under your bed. The mattress is thin, but right now it feels like the only shield you have against the end of the world. Outside, the sound is different. It isn't the roar of the chariot race or the cheer of the crowd. It is the sound of breaking wood and screaming metal. The Goths are in the city. For 800 years, Rome was the predator. Now it is the prey. But the sack of Rome isn't what you expect. It isn't total annihilation. It is a robbery. A massive, organised 3-day robbery. The Goths are Christians, Arians but still. Alaric has given orders. Take the gold, take the silver, but leave the churches alone, and don't kill unless you have to. It is the most polite apocalypse in history, but accidents happen. The gardens of Sallust catch fire. The smoke rolls through the streets, smelling of burning cypress trees and melting statues. You hear boots on the stairs. Your door kicks open. A Goth stands there. He's wearing furs over Roman armour. He looks at you. He looks at your clay pot. He looks at your thin blanket. He sneers. You're too poor to rob. He leaves. You survive. But the Rome you knew is gone. After 3 days, the Goths leave. They take wagons loaded with 800 years of plunder. They take the Emerald of Nero. They take the menorah from the Temple of Jerusalem, which the Romans stole first. They take the emperor's sister, Galla Placidia, as a hostage. They leave behind a city in shock. You walk out onto the street. There are bodies, yes. But mostly there is silence. The humiliation is heavier than the smoke. St. Jerome, writing from a cave in Bethlehem, hears the news and weeps. The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken. But for you, the problem isn't philosophy. It is water. During the wars that follow, the endless sieges between the Goths and the Byzantines, the aqueducts are cut. The Aqua Claudia, the Aqua Marcia, the veins of the city are severed. Suddenly the fountains stop singing. The great baths of Caracalla, they go cold. The furnaces go out. The pools turn into stagnant ponds breeding mosquitoes. Rome, the city of cleanliness, becomes filthy again. You have to go back to the river, back to the buckets, and the grain ships stop coming. The cura annonay, the free bread, is cancelled. The population crashes. Rome goes from 1,000 people to 50,000. The city is too big for its inhabitants. You're living in a skeleton. People move out of the insulae. Why climb 6 flights of stairs when you can squat in a deserted palace on the ground floor? You take over a senator's villa. You keep your pigs in the atrium. You plant cabbages in the courtyard. The forum, the centre of the world, becomes a pasture. They start calling it the Campo Vaccino, the cow field. You see a cow tied to the rostrum where Cicero once spoke. It is absurd. It is tragic. And the buildings? They are being eaten. You need lime to make mortar to fix your wall. Where do you get lime? You burn marble. You take a statue of a god, maybe Venus, maybe Apollo, and you throw it into a kiln. You burn history to build a sheep pen. The Colosseum stops being an arena. It becomes a fortress. A noble family moves in. They build a house inside the stadium. They use the arena floor as a garden. Bandits live in the arches. The theatre of Marcellus becomes a castle. The city is cannibalizing itself. But the greatest loss isn't the stone. It is the words. The libraries close. The scrolls rot. Damp and mould destroy the papyrus. You have a son. You cannot afford to send him to school. The teachers are gone. He grows up without reading Virgil. He grows up without knowing how to calculate the volume of a cylinder. He knows how to use a sword. He knows how to plough a field. The light of knowledge is flickering out. This is the beginning of the Dark Ages. Not because the sun stopped shining, but because we forgot how to write down what we saw. You look at the ruins of the aqueduct standing against the sky like the ribs of a dead giant. You tell your son, giants built that. He believes you, because he cannot imagine that men like him could lift those stones. Technology has become magic. But amidst the ruin, there is a new power rising. The Pope. The Emperor is gone. He moved to Ravenna, then Constantinople. The Senate is a joke, but the Bishop of Rome is still here. Leo the Great rides out to meet Attila the Hun. He has no army. He has no weapon. He just has words. He convinces Attila to turn back. How? We don't know. Maybe gold. Maybe disease in the Hun camp. Maybe the fear of God. But the message is clear. The Church is the new empire. You start going to Mass not just for salvation, but for order. The Church feeds the poor. The Church fixes the walls. You see the priest taking the columns from the Temple of Jupiter and moving them to St. Peter's Basilica. They aren't destroying Rome, they are recycling it. They are turning the empire of the sword into the empire of the soul. But life is hard. Malaria returns. The Roman fever. The swamps are unchecked. The mosquitoes rule the lowlands. You live in fear of the fever. You wear an amulet with a Christian cross on one side and a spell to Hecate on the other, just in case. You are a hybrid, half ancient, half medieval. You look at your hands. They are calloused. You're working harder than your grandfather did, but you are free. The emperor isn't watching you. The tax collector is gone, mostly. The Praetorian Guard isn't kicking down your door. There is a strange, wild freedom in the ruins. You can build your house wherever you want. You can take the marble from the palace. You are the survivor. But one night, you wake up. You hear a sound. Not a Goth, not a Vandal. A bell, a new sound. The church bell ringing the canonical hours. Matins, lauds, vespers. Time has changed again. It isn't measured by the sun or the water clock. It is measured by God. You wrap your cloak around you. It is wool, rough and scratchy. You walk to the window of your squatted villa. You look out over the darkened city. There are no streetlights. The fires are few. The darkness has returned. But in the distance you see a single candle burning in a monastery window. A monk is copying a book. He is saving a piece of the past. He doesn't know it, but he is building the bridge to the future. You watch the light. It is small, but it is steady. You realize that Rome didn't fall in a day. It didn't end with a bang. It just changed clothes. It took off the toga and put on the habit. And you're just trying to make it to morning, because tomorrow you have to milk the cow in the forum. We're almost done. We have seen the glory and the ruin, but we have one final question to answer. What did it feel like to be you? Not a statistic, not a footnote, but a human being living through the greatest story ever told. We're going to wrap this up. We're going to step out of the history book and back into your own skin. And we're going to realize why, despite the lead, the plague, and the mad emperors, you are lucky to be here. So, here we are, standing in the cow field that used to be the centre of the world. We have walked through the Subura with the chamber pots raining down. We have smelled the garum and the burning buildings. We have sat in the Colosseum and watched men die for applause. We have tasted the lead in the wine and felt the fear of the Praetorian Guard knocking at the door. And now, looking at the ruins in the moonlight, we have to ask, why do we love Rome? Why do we make movies about it? Why do we build banks that look like Roman temples? Why do we quote their laws and their poets? If the reality was so horrific, if it was a world of slavery, disease, and random violence, why are we obsessed with it? Because Rome is the mirror. When we look at the Romans, we don't see aliens. We see ourselves. We see their ambition. They wanted to build something that lasted forever. And they did. The concrete dome of the Pantheon is still standing. The roads are still there. The laws they wrote are the foundation of your rights today. We see their flaws, their greed, their corruption, their obsession with entertainment to distract themselves from the crumbling world. Does that sound familiar? They were brilliant, cruel, funny, and terrified, just like us. But there is a difference. You are not them. I want you to step away from the window of the ruined villa. Step away from the smell of the swamp and the smoke. Come back to the present. Feel the bed you are lying in. It isn't a lumpy sack of straw shared with your whole family. It is soft. It is private. It is yours. Listen to the room. There are no carts grinding on cobblestones outside. There are no screams from the tavern. There are no wolves howling at the city gates. There is just the hum of electricity, a magic the Romans would have killed for. Think about the water in your house. You can turn a tap and clean, cold water comes out. No lead, no cholera, no algae. You don't have to carry a bucket up 6 flights of stairs. You don't have to share a sponge on a stick with a stranger. Think about your health. If you get sick, you don't go to a blacksmith to get bled. You don't eat ground-up mummies. You have science. You have safety. You're living in the Elysian fields, the paradise the Romans dreamed of but never reached. You have the luxury of time. The Romans lived fast because they died young. You have decades to think, to learn, to rest. So as you let the tension leave your shoulders, remember this. The empire fell so you could rise. They endured the noise so you could have silence. They built the roads so you could find your way home. They wrote the books so you could read them in safety. You're the emperor of your own life. Your door is locked, your fire is out, or your thermostat is set. The barbarians are not at the gate. The history book is closed. The marble has turned to dust. The shouting in the forum has faded into the wind. There is nothing left to do, no one to salute, no one to bribe, no one to fight. Just you, and the dark, and the quiet. Rome is eternal, but so is sleep, and tonight the city belongs to you. Good night.